Hi guys, this is Fiza Abbas. This is the second interview of the series where that I've started to interview writers and poets. Today I have with me Hiram Larew, who is a Pushcart nominee and a founder of PoetryXHunger initiative. I know Hiram through that platform because I contributed some of my poems as well there. Hiram is one of the finest writers that I know, and being a veteran writer, he must have a lot of experience in writing poetry as well as contributing to different platforms. So he will definitely have a lot of insights to offer us. So let's talk to Hiram.
Okay. Hi guys. Today we have one of my really favorite writers, Hiram Larew. I hope I have pronounced your name correctly. Okay. Thank you. So we have Hiram Larew, and he is a Pushcart nominee as well as a founder of Poetry X Hunger initiative. And I'm not going to read the entire bio because I want him to tell a bit about himself. So let me ask him. Welcome, Hiram, to my YouTube channel. Please
Well,
tell us
thank
a
you.
bit about
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, thank you, Pizza. Um, it's an honor to be here with you today, and especially to visit with you online, in as much as you are one of the featured showcased poets on the Poetry X Hunger website for your hunger-focused poem. I think that's how we met, and it's been a pleasure to visit with you over the Zoom sphere, in the Zoom sphere since. Yeah, I'm based in Maryland, USA, which is just outside of Washington, D.C., and have been a poet for several years. Also have an interest before I retired, I worked on international and U.S. based hunger programs, and so I have a real interest in agriculture, nutrition, food and nutrition, malnutrition, food waste, and all the issues in and around hunger. And so after I retired, I started Poetry X Hunger as a way to bring poets like you to the anti-hunger cause, because as I looked around, I couldn't find too many poems about hunger. I could find a lot of poems about hunger of the heart, hunger of the spirit and of the soul, but not too many about hunger of the stomach. And I thought, well, maybe we could do something about that. So that's how I started Poetry X Hunger. And now we have, I think it's close to 250 poems by poets all over the world, posted on the Poetry X Hunger website. And the initiative has been embraced by the United Nations, by several fairly large food bank operations. It's been picked up, some of the poems have been picked up by pretty well-known hunger authors like Roger Thoreau. He's used some of the poems and the like. So it's been a real interesting and gratifying journey on that Poetry X Hunger journey.
Interesting. So let's start from the beginning. So if I ask you, how did you start writing, and what really inspired you, like when you were young, to write? Like what was the reason? I just wanted to ask.
Sure. I started when I was pretty young. I mean, I can't put an exact age on it, but I think I was, 10 or 11 or something like that, just scribbling things. And while I can't recall exactly what the impetus was for that beginning, I know that I had grandparents who were very interested in poetry. I had parents who read to me. I love being read to. Um, and then I know in school, particularly in elementary and high school, we read poems that just amazed me with what they could do with words, poems by poets like Emily Dickinson and Langston Hughes and a variety of poets. It was just, wow, you mean you can do that with words? I had no clue. So I thought, well, maybe I could try that sort of approach as well. And I've just thoroughly enjoyed and still enjoy working on poems. So it's been a kind of a long path and kind of a circuitous path, but it's been an enjoyable one.
Wow. It's a very when you started writing in the initial phase. So, did you send to journals or what was your process? When did you start sending to journals, and what really triggered you that you should? What was the thought process when you started sending to journals?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't think anyone has asked me that before. Like most poets, I think we've all kind of written a lot in our kidhood when we were children, that we've savored and treasured, but we've set aside and probably not shared widely. It was probably in my 20s or early 30s when I began to send work out. And at that time, because it was more, you sent poems through snail mail to journals. Now, of course, everything is done online. But it was fairly early on that I began to send some poems out. And I guess, again, the reason was it was just a real thrill to, one, see that other people, like editors of journals, thought that the poem was worthwhile enough that they would accept it and print it and share it. And then two, the fact that it was being shared with others, I thought was really cool. So I still get very excited when, a piece or pieces are accepted. I have had, like I imagine most every other poet has had, a lot of pieces that have not been accepted by journals. But I've been lucky enough to have several that have been accepted. And so that's always fun. And after a while, then I've been able to kind of accumulate some of those poems that have been published in journals and bound them into collections, into books. And that's what I'm kind of working on right now as my next collection.
Yeah, I actually read in your bio that your next collection is coming within this year by Atmosphere Press. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank
So
you. I'm looking forward to it.
we all are, I think, looking forward to it. So yeah, definitely. I would really love to read it where once it's out. So yeah, so my next question is what kind of styles do you really like to incorporate in your writing? You like to, go with the classic old styles, or you like to experiment, create your own styles? What's your process?
My answer to that question is yes. I like I kind of like all. And to be very honest, I think my style has changed over the years. It's typically free verse. It's not. I have written a few pieces in a very kind of in a more traditional format, but typically my inclination is to write in free form, free verse. Having said that, I've noticed here lately that I've really enjoyed internal rhyme. I think it's for some reason my internal ear, and my sense of rhythm within a piece just is very attracted to the sounds in a poem. And those can be amplified, I think, with some internal rhyme. So, all to say, I think my poems have changed over time. One of the things, it's not so much the way I write, but the end result of what I'm kind of striving for in poems, sometimes a little bit more successfully than others, is the element of surprise. I love the unexpected in a poem, not just to be unexpected, but to leave the reader and me as the writer kind of wondering a bit at the end, but also gratified at the end with that wonder. And so I try to convey a little sense of the unexpected, the unanticipated, the, as I say, surprise in life and through that in poetry.
Nice, interesting. So yeah, so next question that I want to ask is, you have mentioned that you also offer workshops to young students and writers regarding the Poetry of Hunger initiative as well as other stuff. So can you please elaborate on that as well?
Sure. I've been lucky enough to be what they call adjunct or have courtesy faculty appointments at a number of universities around the US after I retired. And one of those universities asked a while back if I could uh, visit with students about the notion of hunger and poetry, kind of combine the two interests that I have. And it was really from that ask that I began to look around for poetry of hunger. And as I said a minute ago, found that there wasn't much. So really, I can kind of trace the PoetryXHunger initiative back to that original ask. Could you give a lecture, Larew, about hunger and poetry? Um, and so what we do typically is explore with students. And by the way, they teach me as much as I'll ever convey to them about poetry and about how it can amplify and delve deeply into and speak to the heart of um, those reading poetry. And so we kind of talk a little bit about hunger, some of the statistics about it, both in the US and worldwide. And then we talk about hunger and look at some poems that have been written about it and examine how they do what they do and how they, as I say, amplify the message about hunger, kind of in the mode of an anti-hunger, speaking back to hunger. And the students seem to really enjoy that. In one class that I teach, I ask them to actually go the next step and to develop a program or a project where they would use poetry to activate an activity on an anti-hunger activity. And so some of the things that they've come up with have been just amazing. But anyway, and I've also taught or visited with teachers, and kind of been visited with them about how they might bring poetry into their discussions of food, agriculture, and nutrition, and that's been really fun too. I hope that answers your question, Biza.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, yeah. So, in your opinion, how has the shift from snail mail and print journals to electronic mail and digital journals affected the quality of poetry overall?
Hmm, that's a really good question. Um, my sense is that there are just many electronic journals that are publishing work these days. And, you know, I'm not sure if I'm the best person to speak to the kind of overall, I guess you'd say, quality of the work that appears in those journals. I think some of it is amazingly high in quality. Some probably a little bit rougher in terms of its composition. But the kind of the beauty of the electronic platform is I think it has allowed for a broader array of voices to be heard. So it's kind of added to the what I call democratization of poetry. More and more people have been able from everywhere of all kinds have been able to contribute their voice to the electronic platforms in poetry. And so, and I think that's healthy. Even performance poets, spoken word poets, can record themselves and put that out on journals, recordings, YouTube recordings of their work. And so that was all impossible in the print world of times past. And so I think it has enlivened the poetry scene considerably. Yeah, there are probably poems there that I'm not quite as fond of, but there are a lot of poems in the e-sphere that I absolutely love too. So,
I really like the term marketization of poetry. It's really unique and really sums it up. So my next question is actually about that. So what do you think that do all voices need to be heard, they all deserve to be heard, or when it comes to poetry, there should be some kind of limitations when it comes to styles, when it comes to because not everybody is following the same old styles. People, young writers especially, they are coming up with their own methods, their own styles, and experimental poetry is also on the rise these days. So do you really believe that in regards of all this, poetry should change its form with the passage of time, or should it pay a no to the the age old styles or the age old writers? What should be your hope?
Sure. Um, and please understand, my answer to this question is just one answer. I'm sure a lot of other people would have a variety of other answers, but I truly believe that poetry, the community, and the art itself is evolving, and it should. It should not stay static. And that evolution, as far as I'm concerned, is represented and manifest in the incredible array of techniques, styles, voices, volumes, um, focus of poems, themes of poems, uh, across just an amazing, amazing diversity of, of, of peoples, of poets. And, and personally, that's one reason why I love poetry, is the variety of it. I love the legacy poems, the traditional. I respect them. I draw on them. I am also very attracted to the energy, the creativity, the amazing, as I say, diversity of voices and of presentations of poems these days. I mean, you've seen this too, because I've seen poems presented on the page in a circle. I've seen them presented upside down, backwards. I've seen them presented, of course, on YouTube's, where the presentation is as much poetry as are the words being spoken. That's all a vibrancy that I think is important for poems now, and for poetry. Now, the community is, as you can well imagine, the poetry community is huge. There are communities within that community. Some of those folks probably feel that, there is one type of poetry and that's it. And the bounds around it should be maintained. There are others who see no bounds whatsoever. I guess I fall kind of somewhere in between. I love the diversity. I love the range of poems, the excitement in poems. I also enjoy the poems that are thoughtful in the way they are assembled. They can be incredibly creatively assembled, but clearly a lot of thought has gone into, and care is probably the better word. A lot of care has gone into how they're assembled. So again, a little bit of a fuzzy answer to your question, but I think the short answer is yes, exclamation point. I love the range of poetry, and I see that only increasing with time.
Based on that, I have another question to ask. So, do you think that in this overwhelming diversity of platform or styles, we will be able to find the next Milton or Plath, or is there a risk that we might lose?
It's a really good question. How, I guess it kind of is another way of asking it is, who and how will we honor the poets who are writing today and tomorrow? What will we value in those poems? Will we value what they say and observe on the social front, and with all of the issues that the world is confronting? Will we value them for their timelessness in terms of how they speak to the heart or the mind or the soul or spirit, or some other mode of valuing? And it's really hard for me to predict. All I know is that I'm a polyglot, I guess you'd say, in terms of the poetry world. I love aspects of all of that variety. And while there are some poets clearly who have emerged and are emerging in our lifetime as key spokespersons for the poetry community, I also hear and read a number of poets who are not as well known, who I believe are doing amazing work. So, you know, how we shine limelight on individuals so that they become the Miltons or the Shakespeares or the whoever up ahead is still a little bit of a mystery to me. But in the meantime, I'm just enjoying the diversity of voices that are forthcoming.
Okay, that's a very safe answer, but I like it. Okay, so before we end the session, I would like you to read some of your poems.
Oh, now I'm not quite, hold on just a second, I wasn't quite prepared for that, but let me see if I can read. How about if I just read one for you? Is that okay?
Sure, sure.
Okay. This one is in my forthcoming collection. It's a little bit of a look back, but also a savoring of memories of looking back. There's also reference to it to a gentleman named Johnny Appleseed. He was a real person. He lived in the mid 1800s here in the United States, and he was known literally for walking around the country planting apple seeds. And so his name was Johnny Appleseed, and there's mention of him in this poem. This poem is titled Losing Birthdays. One of my grandmothers grew deep red geraniums on her front porch for everyone strolling by in the summer to admire. My other grandmother trained a rose bush of palest pinks and heavenly scent up over her back door. I was lost. And so there is how just now these fields of sunrise forget such birthdays, while blackbirds pick and ticks climb up. What good am I at taking such things inside, these deepest loves and smallest sounds? And I've been told that wherever he went, my imaginary uncle caused people to shyly grin. He was strange, they all said, but people loved him anyway for his dreamy ways. He was just like Johnny Appleseed, who I still believe dropped barefoot seeds on every spot that could be found, poor or steep, year by year, from here to then. So that one's titled Losing Birthdays.
Wow.
Thank you for letting me share it.
I really liked it, and I think I have read it somewhere on your page, maybe, or you shared it with me. I think I have read it because
Maybe
it
so.
just I reminded it. Okay, so thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, so in conclusion, what would you like to say to up-and-coming writers who write but don't feel confident or feel like giving up due to constant rejections in sharing their work to platforms? Is there any advice would you like to give them?
Well, I try to keep it short, keep going, dig deep, speak to your heart, to your soul, to the extent that you're comfortable, share your work in whatever ways make sense to you. And most important of all, enjoy.
Nice. Okay, so another question I have, that's the last question. So that is that so non-native writers, like I am a non-native writer. I'm from Pakistan. My national language is Urdu. So if any non-native writer is trying to make his or her way into the world of poetry, so what tips would you like to give him or her?
Well, first off, I think anyone who writes in their second language is incredibly courageous and smart. So people like you, Fiza, who are writing in English when your native tongue is otherwise, I am so in awe of you, because I certainly can't do that like I wish I could. My sense is that these days and times, journals and editors are incredibly interested, almost hungry for those kind of voices that have probably not been heard as frequently as they should have been in times past. And editors are trying to make up for that lost time and are reaching out to writers who are writing in English as a second language uh, and embracing those poets. So all that to say, I think your timing is very, very good. I don't know what your own experience has been, but my sense is that more and more what I'll call second language or English as a second language poets are appearing. Their work is appearing in a number of journals these days, and I only see that increasing as time goes by.
Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you so much for finding time from your busy schedule to, when I just emailed you and then you just agreed. So thank you so much for that. That's really nice, because I was not
Thank you.
expecting that you would have time. So thank you so much, and we hope that your book comes out soon and then we get to read it. And if there's anybody who would like to contribute to Poetry X Hunger, can you please provide any email address or something?
Yes, it's very easy. It's poetry. It's all one phrase, poetry and the letter X, poetry X, and then hunger. So all one phrase, PoetryXHunger@gmail.com. If they can send their poems there, we'll consider them for posting, like your poem is posted and showcased on the site.
Thank you so much. So all the best and thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
That was a very interesting conversation. I hope you guys really liked it. So if you guys have any questions from Hiram or any other poets that we are going to interview in the future, please feel free to write them in the comment sections. Apart from that, if you have a piece that you would like to contribute, then Hiram has this platform, Poetry X Hunger Initiative. He has mentioned the email address in the interview. So if you have any piece that would relate or go with the ethos of the platform, then please feel free to share to Hiram and he'll definitely be able to publish it. Apart from that, if you are a writer yourself or you know anybody who would like to be interviewed, then please feel free to share the credentials of that writer or yourself in the comment section below. Meanwhile, stay tuned, hit and share this video to the other writers that you know. Thank you.